Giovani with some long numbers on Twitter. So yeah, we're gonna just welcome Giovani to the show.
Hey
Giovani, well,
guys, sorry to be late.
no worries. Yeah, I'm Hans. This is the Wall Street Bitch.
Hey,
How are you
Giovani.
doing?
Hey, Wall Street Beach. that is how I pronounce when I want to say I'm going to the beach. B-E-A-C-H. Say I'm going to the beach, and people laugh. Why are you laughing?
That's funny.
That's
how I
great.
say I go to the beach. Huh. Where are you
Welcome.
based out of?
I'm in San Diego. California.
Cool.
Ooh, I love Ocean Beach.
There are a lot of beaches here.
Yeah, they're great. Yeah.
A lot of beautiful bitches. Yeah.
Yes.
Awesome.
Well, yeah, we appreciate.
Is a live show? Or
yeah, we're live.
Wow.
We're is that okay with you? We're about to be live.
Yeah, fantastic. Sorry, apologize to be late.
I can't hear him.
No. Oh, you can't hear him?
Oh, yeah. Just a second. I have my microphone here. Now, is this better?
I can hear you good. My co-host WSB, or How I Go to the Beach. You good?
No, I can't hear anything. Wow.
Really?
Yeah.
Try the up here plug.
Damn it, dude! How does this happen?
Push it in more.
No, I can't hear him.
You can't hear?
I'm trying again.
Now I can. Now I can.
You're good. Yeah, thank you. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Yeah. So how are you doing today?
I'm fine. I'm great.
Good. That's great.
What about you guys?
We're doing pretty good. We got a really nice warm day, so we can't.
And where are you located?
We're in Colorado near Denver. So.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Not bad.
Yeah, and essentially our podcast, we interview interesting people, so a wide spectrum of different personalities and people with different expertise. And we came across your profile and we watched a couple of videos, and we were fascinated. So we're excited to have this conversation today.
Thank you. Same thing with me. Thank you to invite me.
Yeah.
So could you give us some kind of background? We usually ask our guests to just introduce themselves, with a little bit of background on what they're all about and everything. So if you're happy to contextualize that for our audience, that'd be great.
No problem.
Yeah, thank you,
So,
Giovani.
I'm Italian. I came here, for continuing my studies, and my studies were mostly in physics, in fact, astrophysics.
Okay.
I got a PhD in the field. I'm interested in gravitational waves, that are these vibration in the fabric of space and time. But at a certain point, I changed actually the field because we were not seeing any gravitational waves for all. They got discovered just recently in the last few years. And so for most of my career as a student and then as a professional in the field, I was looking at noise, that is interesting. But it's also, it gave me a background that is useful for understanding Bitcoin, because part of what I studied was how to extract signal. So if you have some data, the question is, you have noise, you have a lot of noise. Can you extract the signal from the noise? So this is eventually was very useful to apply to Bitcoin. It's kind of like, in fact, part of my dissertation was on this topic of how to extract signal from very noisy data. And then I changed field because several reasons. Because of a financial crisis, right, in 2008, I was teaching in a small college. The college told me they needed to let me go because I was very good, both in the teaching component, but also my research, doing this gravitation thing. But they needed to reduce. It was a very small college. They didn't need an extra physics professor. They wanted to keep the staff to a smaller number because of the crisis. So I wanted to kind of reinvent myself. So my dad just died of ALS, the same illness that
I'm sorry about that.
Hal Finney had, just to make Bitcoin connections. And so I decided I'm going to go to a more practical field. So I went into the kind of medical studies, and I wanted to apply my knowledge of physics and math, in this more applied field. And so I ended up studying the neuroscience of sleep. And so I went it up at Northwestern University. I have also some patents in this field to make you smarter while you're sleeping, improving your memory. Yeah, it's really cool. But again, I mentioned this because it kind of a little bit of a thread of my, my connection with my interest in Bitcoin, because it was me. I've been, completely new in this field of medical and science, because it was in the medical school where I was doing this research, and in particular, studying the brains. But I use the same tools. I use the same tools that I was using to understand gravitational waves, because now I was studying brain waves. I was studying brain waves, how the brain waves are produced during the sleep. So the idea is that if you have the right tools, you can understand many different phenomena.
Yeah, are you doing like EEG studies?
Yeah,
with, like,
EEG
the
stuff,
and
right?
looking at different what brain waves specifically are you looking at? Yeah,
correct. Yeah, and during sleep you have a lot of these very slow waves called slow
delta.
waves or delta waves.
Yeah.
And so I was trying to understand them. What is their relevance? Because more of these delta waves you have, better is your memory. So we were trying to improve, in particular during aging, the amount of delta waves became smaller and smaller. And actually, that is strongly correlated with the problems that a lot of older people experience in remembering things. It's like one, yeah. And so the idea was, can we do anything to enhance it, right? Can we enhance these delta waves so they actually remember better? And I invented a device that follows the cycles of a cycle of sleeps. Like right now I'm following the cycles of Bitcoin. And we did certain things like producing sounds that were synchronized to your brain waves to enhance these delta waves. And we saw a change in memory because we were giving them memory tests, cognitive tests to people, and they came to different nights, one with stimulations, one without stimulation, and they changed their brain performance. It's amazing.
Yeah, that's like neuroimaging, right? Is that what they call that?
Yeah, neurotech. We didn't put people in a scanner, but we use the EEG because you want something that it's not interfering while they're sleeping. It's EEG. You just put some electrodes and then you can follow them. While they're sleeping.
I've heard psilocybin has helped, like mushrooms, like magic mushrooms have helped people with memory,
and
probably early onset dementia. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure if I go online, and I didn't research it, but if I Google, you bet that we have an impact on sleep, because that is how you get better memory, by improving these delta waves during sleep. So probably when the person meditation does the same, if you go to sleep, then your delta waves are impacted, and that helps you with your memory. But it really helped me because, see, actually, I was finding power laws, that is the topic that we want to discuss here with Bitcoin. I was finding power laws in the brain. And it was kind of funny because many times, given that, they are almost unknown also in the neuroscience field. These are scientists, but a lot of them are kind of more like biology based, instead of being physics based. And so power laws are something that we love in physics, because they are everywhere in nature.
Are you saying power loads?
Power law.
Power law. So the power,
okay.
and I will tell you in a moment what that means. So law, L-O-W.
Gotcha.
Law in science many times means like a pattern, like a very strong pattern, like we know the law of gravity, but it really is a pattern, right? It's not like there is a book that says, here is the law of gravity, right? We just observe this pattern, and it turns out it really works most of the time. You drop a stone, if the stone goes down, and we call it a law, right? Because we have like a little equation that describe how the law works, But it really, what it means is a pattern, right? A very predictive, stable pattern that you observe in nature. And so I was finding these power laws everywhere in the brain. And it's very important because it shows that the brain works in a certain given way that has this, if you look at my YouTube videos, because I have my own YouTube channel.
Yeah, we watch some of those.
X account. We talk about the scaling variant property, right? The scaling variant means that the system behaves at all levels. If you look at, we're talking about frequency. You look at fast frequency, slow frequencies. It behaves very similar, at all these scales. And Bitcoin behaves the same way. This is what one of the things that I will tell you. The Bitcoin has behaved like the brain. The brain and Bitcoin have similarities. If you can make actually a graph, showing the different things that happening at different frequencies, like every day, every hour, every minute, every 10 days, you get the same type of curve that you're getting with the brain. Same graph.
Are you saying that's just because like human instinct and that's what's operating Bitcoin, or that Bitcoin has a mind of its own?
Yeah. So what is Bitcoin? Right? Bitcoin is this incredible experiment that involves human desires, human actions, human understanding of value, how we interact with each other, so social interactions. So it's basically a social network. So this word network is very fundamental because my research, and one of the things I want to clarify, I have also some slides. I don't know if your viewers are just listening or if there is also a video.
Oh, we'd love to hear some slides. If you see a button, it might say share. So, I think that should work for you.
Share my slides because
that'd be great.
It's much easier to understand when you are. So what I can do, I can go dive in the presentation because it will kind of answer all your questions. But go ahead.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I'm curious. When does something become a law? So you recognize a pattern in nature, and is it just general scientific consensus? Like, okay, this is a law because we've seen it repeated millions of times. Like, I'm just curious how you.
It's a very good question. Wonderful question. There is not really a Senate, or a president of science that says, "Hey, this is when we vote and we make it a law," right? There is no a body like that. That is actually a pretty good thing because we know this centralized organization, they always, fuck up. Basically, this is what happened. So it's a pretty good thing. And so the usual thing is something like you said. You start with somebody recognizes some kind of a pattern. Just to give an example, when Copernicus, right, that is kind of where science started, when people went from the Renaissance, from the Middle Ages to the Renaissance, they started to think more scientifically about these kind of things. He actually discovered a power law, one of these power laws, right? They didn't have a terminology at the time. They didn't call it a power law, but he looked at the planets, how the planets move around the sun, and he found a pattern, a very, very precise pattern. He kind of plotted, I'm a little bit simplifying because it was more complicated at the time. They didn't even have really the graph that we have right now because they were invented by Descartes later. But in his case, he had all these tables. I don't know how these guys did it. I mean, today we have computers. Everything is so easy, But at the time, they did everything by... These people were nuts. Like, they spent years and years doing the same calculations. But, he wanted to find a pattern about the planets because he believed that God was moving these planets, right? But so he had to do it in a very precise fashion. So he looked at the distance of a planet because they knew how far the planets were using different methods. And so they had this new idea of a Copernican system, right, where the center, where the sun is at the center of the solar system. And so Kepler looked at how the distance and the time it takes for a planet are related to each other. And eventually, if you do it today with a computer and you have a patience, you can take Excel. You go, and in fact, I invite, if anybody's curious, go and do it. Today you can get everything, right? You say distance of Venus, distance of Mercury, how long it takes, and you put it in a graph. If you take the log of a distance and you take the log, that is the key. That is where the insight, in fact, even
how long term does the log have to be? Like how many months?
So you take the log of a distance of a planet and the log of a time it takes the planet to go around the sun. You get this almost crazy, almost scares you because all of a sudden you see a straight line. All these dots follow on a straight line. You say, what the heck? What is going on there?
Interesting.
Right? Wow. Because if it is a straight line, it means it's not by chance. It has to be something. And this is why we call it a law. This is why we call the Kepler's law. These are called the Kepler's law, because even if Kepler didn't know what was going on, like he was looking for this pattern and he found it. He found this crazy straight line. And I don't know what sensation he had, but I tell you what sensation I had when I discovered the same straight line in Bitcoin. I did exactly the same thing that Kepler did. Quote unquote, like I say, it's not exactly like that. But let's say you wanted to reproduce, you pretend you didn't know about the solar system, and you do what I'm telling you to do, to go online, look at all the distance, take Excel, take the log. I will tell you in a moment that, as a refresher, what a log is, but it's a relatively simple math operation. You take the log of, like for example, if you have 100 and you take the log of 100, you get 2 because it gives you the exponents, right? 100 is 10 to the 2 or 10 by 10, right? You multiply 10 2 times and you get 10 to the 2. You take the log, you get 2, right? You multiply, you have 1,000. 1,000 can be written as 10 to the 3, like the exponent of 3, yes, because it's 10 times 10 times 10. You take the log of 1,000, you get 3, right? Because it gives you the exponent. It's pretty simple. So you do that, you write, and there is a reason that I will explain you. I will explain you what is the meaning behind that, right? Why it's so important to get that exponent. It's called scale. It's called the scale of something. When you change something by big, large amounts, 10, 100, 1,000, and so on. If you look at Bitcoin from this angle of looking at the scale, so when the price went from $10, $100, $1,000, when the time changed from few days to 100 days to 1,000 days, if you plot it in that way, is why you want to use the log, then you get this beautiful straight line. And when I found it, when I look at that straight line, I almost fell from the chair because it was like, what? What? Bitcoin is like this. It's so regular, so beautiful.
So do you oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Do you invest all of your money in Bitcoin now at this point?
Yes.
Like all your savings?
that is a fundamental question. Right? Once you see this, did you convert? Yes, of course. I'd converted even before, because I converted all the way to 2012.
Well, that's a good time.
I read an article that kind of had the first chart that I ever saw about Bitcoin. This was 2012. And they were claiming that Bitcoin was an exponential. It was not a power law. And at that time, I'd actually downloaded the data. I studied the data. It was not an exponential according to what I was looking, but I didn't get all the details. But I almost immediately realized that Bitcoin was something different. I understood the technology, understood the math. I thought, this is not like another asset. It's something completely different. And I jumped in, the same reason why I came to the United States. I decided to leave everything, my family, my country, and I came to the United States. It was the same type of adventurous idea, right? To jump into Bitcoin. I did the same thing. But so to answer your question, a law, right? What is a law versus what is that? Show me what you were showing.
So when you
I went to Ethereum festival. I went to the Ethereum festival in Denver.
Yeah, it's okay. So, it's a great to explore.
So the data points.
Let me answer that question because it's an important question that you ask. What is a law, right? So once Kepler didn't know what was going on, right? Why the planets behave like this. If he worked for 2 planets, it was not going to be a law. He worked for 3 planets, 4 planets. By the time they had all the planets, and plus when the Halley comet comes, right? So now a comet, that doesn't have anything to do with planets, comet. And then it follows the same law, and then the moon follows the same law. They discover that Jupiter has little satellites, right, little moons, and the moons follow the law. Everything follows the law. Then it becomes a law, right? Once it starts to be well established, and there are a lot. Now, the next thing that happens, usually in science, is a law now becomes a theory. And this is actually what happened with my work. I went from a law to actually create a theory. Now I have a full theory of Bitcoin. Now, when something becomes a theory, well, in the story, in the little story that I explain you, 100 years later, after that, Kepler did a revolution. At that time, they didn't have the internet. They had like very primitive prints. You will print a book. It will take months and months and months before you heard about this crazy guy, Kepler, that says that he found something. Can you imagine today? It will be all over the news. Something like this discovered. Like the planets follow a particular law. Right? It will be a big, huge news. At that time, it took months and months and months. So it took almost 10 years. I'm sorry, 100 years. It took 100 years before Newton came about, and he took the work from this guy, from Kepler, and he said, I know what is going on. I know why, because he had no clue. He found the law, and even if he didn't have an explanation, because it was so regular, people started to listen. Newton, this is why it's so famous, and everybody knows about Newton, right? He said they behave in this way because of this thing called gravity. So he gave an explanation. He was able to derive the pattern that Kepler observed from very first principles, that is the idea of gravity, say, because there is this law between the masses of the planet and the mass of the sun. There is this force of attraction, and he wrote down the equation. And so he was able to show that if everything behaves in that way that he described, then you will get these little dots on this graph. So that this is when people got crazy, because they thought, okay, now we are almost like God, right? Now we understand how the universe works. And then, from gravity, we went to steam, electricity, and we became more and more powerful. This is how science came about, by discovering these laws. Now, since Kepler, we found hundreds and hundreds of these laws. These are called power laws. And I will tell you in a moment why they are called power laws. But ask me some question if you have any question. But this is a presentation that I have here that kind of show you a little bit of these ideas. We can go through them.
I was just thinking, like Bitcoin. There's similarities between Bitcoin and the universe, because they're sort of like a closed ecosystem with set rules, which allow for these patterns to happen over time.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is fascinating, because I was thinking before, like, how can there be set laws with something like Bitcoin? But because of that structure, it makes sense. So the data points that you're looking at, are they every single time someone buys and sells? And then the amount of time?
If you don't mind, give me 5 seconds. 2 minutes, because I will give you a structure, and then I will answer this question.
Is that Kepler looking at Bitcoin?
Yeah, exactly.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah, actually a follower of mine made this, right? Evidently using Midjourney or something, but it's fantastic. But it's the same idea, right? So this is what I'm saying. Is almost like I am here, Giovanni, new Galileo. I know it sounds crazy, but it's it's alpha joke, alpha truth. That I'm coming and I'm using science to actually study Bitcoin, because a lot of the people that you hear, right, there are a lot of channels. So I have, let me use moving averages, let me use RSI. We use all these indicators, and most of it is crap, right? Because and don't let me talk about S2F, because S2F is really garbage, and if you want, I can tell you why.
What is S2F? Sorry,
stock to flow. Flow. That was a very, very popular model last cycle. Everybody was talking about it, but it's really bad. But let's talk later, maybe, if you're interested.
Yeah, let's jump into this.
But this is the idea. I'm making this analogy that I am like a little Kepler, Galileo, these Renaissance scholars that kind of jump-started science. I want to create a science of Bitcoin. I want to use all the tools. You remember how we went from physics to neuroscience, and use the same tools, and I was looking at the brain from a physicist point of view, and I was able to get patents. I did publish many papers. I was starting to be relatively known in the field, even as a newcomer, because I look at things in a slightly different way, right? Yeah. And I want to do the same thing. I want to bring the language of science and physics and math to Bitcoin. That is my mission. And I love this wonderful picture, right? I'm glad that you recognize it as such. And everybody here in the audience listen, see, okay, what are we going to discover, right? And so the idea is that if you look at the data, right? So the beautiful thing about Bitcoin is that we have all this data that is available to us, because everything is recorded, right? So it's called the on-chain data. So we know how many addresses there are, how many transactions there are. We know the price. We know the hash rate, of the machines. Because remember when we were talking about what Bitcoin is this experiment where we have humans interacting with each other like us, right? We're talking about Bitcoin. We're talking about these ideas. So it's a social interaction. We have you have your podcast. I have my X account. And, we're spreading this information around, right? So it's social interactions. But also we have the machines, right? Because we have these mining machines. They are introducing energy in the system, right? Saylor talks all the time about thermodynamics and energy. So this is true because there are all these machines, right? So it's an interaction between humans, machines. It's time, because these things happen in time. So it's all these things that work together and create these phenomena. So this is why Bitcoin is not like gold. It's not like a stock. It's not Nvidia. It's different. It's something. It's its own universe. And the beauty of it is that this is why we can treat it as a science. That we want anything you want to know about Bitcoin, how long people have held, holds on some coins, or how many transactions there are, how much energy is input by the mining machines. You can download it, open source, all that information is there, right? So this is what I'm doing. I'm getting all this information. This graph shows what Bitcoin looks like when you look it with the wrong lenses. In this case, I'm just taking the price as it is, $10,000, $20,000, whatever, and I'm plotting it against the time. Time here, I measure everything as days from when Bitcoin was created. Bitcoin was created in January 3, 2009, and everything, so it's measured. So if you say 1,000 days, it means 1,000 days from Genesis block, right? January 3, 2009. It makes sense because it makes sense to talk about a system in terms of when it was born, right?
Right.
Yes.
You were going to ask
sort of
me
like
something.
the Big Bang.
The Big Bang, exactly.
And
Very cool idea.
I was just thinking, you said Bitcoin's its own universe. It's different than gold. And I understand that, but what really separates it? Is it the social aspect? Is it the data collecting aspect?
Are we talking about gold right now? Did you invite me to talk about gold? You invited me to talk about Bitcoin. I have a passion, the drive, the interest of it. There are people that talk about Bitcoin all the time. Their wives are I got somebody here in San Diego that had a podcast. I went to it actually physically. And he was telling me his wife had to tell him, please, next time we meet my parents, don't talk about Bitcoin.
Well,
I was laughing like crazy because this is the same thing that my girlfriend told me. She told me, you have 30 minutes every day to tell me about everything you like about Bitcoin. Only these 30 minutes because I don't want to hear anything else. And she's lovely, and at least she listened, for 30 minutes because she cannot handle it more, because I'm so fanatic. But if it was for me, I will talk all day about Bitcoin, right?
So if we had just as many data points about gold transactions over time as we do about Bitcoin, do you think you would find a power law with something like gold? Do you think something like that?
No, because I did study, right? We do have a price at least. We don't have all the other things, but we do have and so I tried SP500, I tried the Nvidia, I tried all these things. I can show graphs of these things. Nothing behaves like Bitcoin, in particular over the enormous range, because that will be also part of the message when you study this power law. Remember, we want to focus on this scale, right? When we went from few cents to $1, $10, $100, $1,000. Nothing in history of mankind did anything like Bitcoin, where we went to basically like a fraction of a dollar, because the first USD transaction, how much Bitcoin was worth when it was first transacted for the first time? Not in an exchange, it was actually directly between people. There was this guy, he was actually one of the first people that interacted with Satoshi. He wanted to make a point that, you could go back and forth between the dollar and Bitcoin. Do you know how much Bitcoin was worth at that time? This was early 2009, early 2010.
$120 or something?
He sold it sold 10,000 Bitcoins for $1. Can you imagine?
Wow. That's insane.
Yeah. So that means that the one Bitcoin was worth 0.301 dollars. 0 point, not even a cent,
Yeah.
It was like a fraction of a cent.
It was like a Dogecoin or Shibu Inu.
Yeah,
coin
it was like a shit coin. It was like the same.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe in your channel, I don't know, you guys, maybe you don't call them shit coin because you're open to other.
We call them shit coins. Yeah.
But it was like a fraction of a dollar. So it went from 10 to the minus 4, right? That means 0, 3 zeros, 1, right? 0, 0, 0, 1,
Yeah.
1/10,000 of a dollar, all the way to almost 100,000. So that, if you're talking about magnitude, so changes of 10, it's 8 order of magnitude. I made an analogy to let people understand that is the equivalent of going from a speck of dust all the way to the Himalayas mountain. So imagine you have this crazy rock coming from the sky, and in the beginning is a small little dust, right? Speck of dust. And in 15 years, this thing almost like, these 50s movies, where there is the blob that becomes bigger and bigger, So imagine there is this little speck of dust that goes from being a speck of dust, actually microscopic, that you cannot even see it with your naked eye, all the way to be Mount Everest.
That's insane.
In 15 years, we don't have in the history of mankind anything in that way. Nothing.
That's insane.
And
That's
so,
insane.
It's very difficult to find anything else of it. Even if you compare it, you can take the SP500. The problem when you compare it with the SP500 and you take maybe, 30 years history or 100 years history, most of the growth of SP500, it's inflation. It's only due to inflation.
Yeah, it's a bubble.
It's it's really a bubble, right? It's all inflation. And so it looks like it's going up and up and up, but mostly because of inflation. With Bitcoin, you can correct it for inflation. That is a question that everybody's asking. Oh, you're using the USD dollar. Well, even if I introduce the inflation, it becomes like a small correction. It's almost nothing, because this thing went up, thousands and thousands of times. So inflation is almost like it didn't exist at all. So
why is this the wrong graph to look at? You
exactly. So this is what I was trying to say. This is the wrong graph. Why is the wrong graph? Because this is actually what people use on TV. They, on CNBC, all these stupid channels, they show Bitcoin and they want to talk badly about Bitcoin, and they say, look at this, it went up, sure, but then it crashed, it went all the way to 60,000, then it went to 16,000. People were, you cannot see because in the beginning, the prices were so small that it looks almost flat, right? It went, I remember because I was there in 2012, it went from $5, $10, to $20, and then it crashed to $3. Wow, Bitcoin is dead. People were saying that, and then it did it again, right? $20,000 in 2013, all the way to $3,000, 60,000. So basically, they emphasize how crazy these fluctuations are, and you cannot really invest anything on this. You will be stupid because next time maybe it goes all the way to zero. So you are an idiot if you're investing in this thing. It's horrible. It's no something that you should trust. This is what is the point they want to make. But they are looking, they don't have a telescope. They don't have the right tool. Did I lose you guys?
Can you hear us?
Yeah, great. Perfect.
Okay, so sorry about that. Everything just shut off.
Well, there are some people that don't like the power law. Maybe this was their influence or something.
No. We're both hooked. I'm very much interested.
They intervene, right? They did something to your electricity. I'm just making a joke. But anyways, yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say that's what he was saying. He said we might have gotten hacked because of what you were saying.
Yeah, somebody doesn't want this to be known,
Wait, I'm getting a little bit of an echo here. Okay, but yeah, continue.
Yeah. So, this graph is not the right graph, right? Because it shows, do you remember when in the beginning I was telling you signal and noise? This graph is not emphasizing the signal. So as my job, right, is I learn how to make the noise smaller relatively to the signal. This is what you do. So one of the things that you do, in particular of this huge big change in scale, like I said, we went from one as fraction of a dollar all the way to 100,000, is to take the log. So you take the log of a y-axis. So if you do that, you get a graph like this. So forget for a moment the rainbow color, but look at what you get, right? You get something that is much more regular. So the black line is the price, the stars are the halvings. The price looks much more regular, right? The noise now, these huge big changes in price due to these bubbles, they are much more modest, right, in comparison with the general trajectory. And the general trajectory now is this bending curve that we need to understand for a moment. And here I already introduced what will be the real pattern that I found, and the band are also relevant to that. But for a moment, forget about the general trend, right? I mean, the general middle line, that is what the real pattern that I claim be call or follow. But right now, the idea is that by taking the log, and remember what I said before, what the log does, right? You can think it almost like a little box. You put in something and the box spits out something, right? You put in 100, that is 10 to the 2. When you write it in that way, it's called the scientific notation. So you put in 100, 10 to the 2, and it spits out the little exponent, so 2, right? This is why you have 2 in the chart. If you have 10 is multiplied by 1, right? So you get 10 to the 1, right? The exponent of 10 is 1. You get 1,000, 10 times 10 times 10, 10 to the 3, the log gives you 3. So the negative number there is a fraction. So 0.1 will mean 1 divided by 10. And so you write it as 10 to the minus 1. The log gives you minus 1. So the beauty of doing this, of focusing on the exponent, is that now you get out the scale, what is called the scale. So it's almost like, if you want to do an analogy, you are trying to understand a forest, right? And I am inside the forest. I'm going to see just a bunch of trees. But if I take a drone or I fly, right, and I go above the forest, and I'm looking at the forest from a very big height, I start to see the general pattern of the forest, how big the forest is, the shape of the forest. Maybe there are different type of trees. I start to see a bunch of things that I was not able to see when I was inside the forest. And so this is what these logs makes you to do. You're almost taking a drone and you're going up and you're saying, I'm not interested in when Bitcoin changed from $3 from $3 to $5. I want to see when Bitcoin went from being 10 minus 1, like a quarter or whatever, all the way to $1, from the dollar to $10, from $10 to $100. When you do like this, now you start to see a pattern. You're focusing on the right thing. You're focusing on these huge, big changes. And the pattern there is very regular. Now, one thing that is important to understand, that if Bitcoin was an exponential, so what is an exponential? An exponential is any process that doubles and doubles and doubles and doubles, right? When you have a virus, for example, you have a virus inside a vial, the virus doubles, let's say it doubles every day. So it doubles, and maybe it took like
exponential, growth.
Exponential growth. It took like 2 weeks to fill half of the vial. And remember, I say every time it doubles, it takes about 1 day. It took 2 weeks to go all the way to 50%. How long will it take to fill the entire vial? Only 1 day, right? Because see how fast it is. That gives you a feeling of how fast an exponential process is, because it took a week.
Hey everyone, sorry that we had a little bit of technical difficulties recording these past 2 episodes. We are going to have Giovanni back on for part 2. So if you have any questions for him, we're hoping to have him on in the next few days. So please do reach out. Thanks, and I hope you enjoyed this episode. And we're sorry that it got a little broken up at the end, but we're going to do a part 2, have him on for at least an hour. Thanks.
Do a song called Ohio by
account.